Hello and welcome to another interview of Wannabe Entrepreneur. Today I have a very interesting topic to explore. I'm here with Shulhi. Did I say your name correctly?
Shulhi, yeah.
Shulhi. Okay,
Yeah.
Shulhi. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation. Short notice. I basically sent him a message, I guess like 1 hour ago or so, and he said, "Okay, let's do it." So thank you so much, Shulhi.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah, so today I want to cover a topic that, especially now after this COVID times, I think it's really important, which is tips and tricks about working remotely. And I even asked on Twitter to give for people to give me a couple of suggestions and tips. And now I'm speaking with Shulhi, and he has been working remotely for the past 6 years. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. So I guess this will be very interesting, and we have someone with a lot of experience. And myself, I've also been working remotely for a while now. First, when the COVID started, and now as a bootstrapper. So I guess it's something bootstrappers, especially solopreneurs, they have to do it because they don't have an office to go to, and there's I don't know. I also have a lot of questions for you. So, Shuri, thank you so much. But just to start, I would like for you to introduce yourself. Just give a couple of words about who are you and what's your background, and yeah, a little bit about yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's sure. My name is Shulhi. So basically, I've been working remotely for over 6 years now. I'm working for a company in the US, and I'm actually based in Malaysia. So there's a big time zone gap there. That's gonna be some interesting topic to talk about too.
What is the time difference?
The time difference should be, I think, around 12 hours between.
Whoa,
Yeah,
it's a
12
lot. Yeah.
hours. I've been developers for over, I think, more than 8 years now. Then the current role is also a developer, and beside the day job, I also run a side project which is called Stencil. It's at stencil.com. So I think working remotely give especially for solo entrepreneur, working remotely can give you a lot of advantages, even if you have like a day job.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. But there's also some disadvantages, I guess, and we will also speak about those.
Yeah, that's right.
So you said that you're a developer. What kind of developer? Backend, front end? What are your languages?
My languages are Haskell and Rescript. That's what I do most for my job, and then I also do like Elixir. That's the stack I'm using for my side project.
I don't know any of these languages actually.
Oh,
can you say you said Excel? No,
Elixir.
Elixir.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that a backend or a front end?
That's a backend language, and then the Rescript is a front end language. Basically, it's almost similar to TypeScript, but I would think it's a better choice anyway.
So it's like JavaScript.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Well, this is a really interesting stack. That's quite of a hipster here.
So those languages that I'm using, they are actually functional languages.
Right.
So it's a bit different than when we start programming. Usually, we start with object-oriented programming. That's what I started with too.
Yeah, same. What is the difference between a functional language and object-oriented language?
Basically, it's mostly the paradigm. Usually regarding how do you manage the state. So in OOP, usually you have like encapsulation. We try to encapsulate as much as possible the state of your object. That could also cause some of the state being implicit. That means whenever you make changes to the object, it's not really clear that a state has changed. So with functional programming, everything is a function basically, and then you have to pass things around explicitly.
That's very interesting. I have never worked with a functional language. It's
So interestingly, like Rescript is originally was developed by Bloomberg, and right now, I think it's quite mainstream. It's quite mainstream now, but it's not as popular as any other.
right. What is the
Like
advantage in terms of performance, or in which cases would you pick to use a functional language or like a normal one?
I can give you an example for Rescript.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem that we had at work when we use JavaScript back then was
Yeah.
that we had a lot of trouble with refactoring. Our code base was running like a legacy Angular at that time, and
Mm-hmm.
then when we convert our code to like Rescript, everything is immutable. That means when you make changes, it doesn't really affect any other parts of the
Right.
code.
Right.
Yeah, so that makes refactoring a lot more easier and then less scary. So whenever you make changes in here, you definitely know that uh, it won't like implicitly affect any other part of your code.
Yeah.
Um,
So you have the single purpose principle intertwined with the logic, right? Like
yeah,
every
yeah,
function has only one goal, and so it's much easier to refactor.
yeah. That's right. That's right. And
Ah,
then
that's an
and then
interesting point.
the interesting bit about using like Rescript, because it's a compile language. Basically, when you write your code, you write in Rescript, but when it gets compiled to JavaScript. And
Ah,
we
okay.
haven't had a runtime error for over 2 years. So that I think that is something amazing when we're talking about like front end technologies, right? Usually in JavaScript, you have a lot of like runtime errors, like object
Yeah,
is not a function kind of thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
For 2 years, how?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
why? Why don't you have those? Because it's compiled, so it
Yeah.
detects everything.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. All those errors are detected during compile time. And
right.
then we still have errors, of course, but they are mostly just like logical errors, like
Of
business
course,
logic.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You don't have compile. So the difference that like JavaScript or Python, for instance, are languages that they are not compiled beforehand, so you can occur these errors can occur like object is not or a segmentation false or something like this. But with compiling languages, everything runs through a compiler before actually running the code, right? So all of these bugs are detected. So you can actually have those have a compiler and still use JavaScript
Yeah,
when you
that's
use
correct.
Rescript.
Mhm.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing about it. I will link Rescript in the description of this episode as well. But let's stop speaking about geek stuff and
Okay.
let's get started with this stuff. I'm imagining a lot of my non-developer listeners already like skipping ahead or thinking, okay, let's stop this. But it's really interesting for me. Um, so when did you ever like work in a normal office
Yeah, I
before?
did. Yeah, I actually I work as developer before this too. In my
Mm-hmm.
previous job, I had to go to the office. Um, so basically the same stuff that everyone is doing, 9 to 5 kind of thing.
Did you like that?
Um, I think it depends, because there are certain days that you just won't that you just don't feel like going to the office, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, certainly there are days like that, and then there's certain days you're excited to go to the
Mm.
office. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah. When I was going, so I used to work at Trivago. It
Mhm.
was my first job, and we had like a hybrid system. Like I would go most of the days, but that's sometimes if I didn't want to go, I could just say, hey, I'm staying at home. Was that the same for you?
No, no, there wasn't an option when I was working in my previous
Okay.
job. Yeah, you have to go to the office. Yeah.
What were the things that you hated the most about going to the office?
I think most of the commute time. I was living
Yeah.
in Kuala Lumpur, which
Hmm.
is the main city in Malaysia, which is the
Yeah.
central of Malaysia. So that means I have my commute every day took me around at least 2 or 3 hours a day. So I yeah
Wow.
yeah
It's a lot. So 1.5 hours to go and another 1.5 to return.
yeah, that's right. hmm
Wow. Yeah.
The
Yeah. That's
distance
super
isn't is
annoying.
the distance isn't so bad actually, but the traffic was pretty bad.
And there's no public transportation, that like
Uh,
subway or
they
something.
they are, but the some of the location of my office isn't near
Mm,
any of those.
reachable.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not reachable.
Okay. Yeah. That's definitely something that I hated. And when I was studying, for me, my commute to college was also like 1 hour, and I promised to myself that I would never had that. So when I moved, because I was living in Germany, and I moved like just 10 minutes walk from the office, and that was the best thing ever. I could literally walk. I could leave at any time, and in 10 minutes, I would always be in the office, and that was it. Really changes your life quality.
Yeah, that's true. And to avoid the traffic, usually I have to stay. I usually like stay back. So
Right.
instead of like going around 5, I usually just go back around like 7 or 8.
Hmm.
So I could at least like do something else in between this time, and then not having to deal with like 1 hour traffic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I completely understand
Yeah.
that. And so, when did the opportunity to start working remotely came up?
So usually in Hacker News, there were like many posts about who's hiring this month, who wants to be
Right.
hired, right? So I think I posted in one of the posts,
Mm-hmm.
um, and someone from the company reached out to me and like to know if I'm interested in working with them. So that's how I got the current work. So then the usual process, interviews, things like that, and then signing the contract. Everything is done. Everything is done online.
Mm-hmm. So this was already this company from the US.
Yes, it's called Cloud Technologies actually.
Mm-hmm.
It is based in Oklahoma.
Okay. And so this was something kind of new for you, right? Like, were you scared of doing this transition? Worried that things might wouldn't work out? What were your thoughts back then?
Yeah, definitely. I have those feelings. I think the my most worry at that time is about like job security because all of the process happen online,
Right.
uh, and then you never actually meet those person
Yeah.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, physically, right? And so I wasn't really sure if that's something legit or not, but they sent me some cash to get my laptop set up,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to get everything set up. So I know it was legit.
And the what about the salary? So that's a big advantage, right? About working to companies that are in other countries, that you might have a better salary. Was it something that
That's
also
yeah,
attracted you?
yeah, that's correct. In term of salary, I got uh, whatever the rest of developers are having basically. So there wasn't really, because like certain companies they have based on location, so they try to pay
Exactly.
you based on your location instead of like paying everyone the same salary. So this is not the case. So I think that I'm a bit fortunate in terms of that.
Yeah. So you got the
Yeah.
same salary as your peers in the US.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And the cost of living in Malaysia, is it lower?
That's if you compare to the US, it's definitely lower.
Lower, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you are living like a king.
Well, well, not really. Texas.
Ah, right, right, right. So your taxes you pay in Malaysia, right? So how
That's
is that
correct.
done? Wait, sorry.
So the way the arrangement's done, I set
Mm-hmm.
up a company. So those payments go through the go to the company. So I have to talk to my boss about this arrangement first, because initially I didn't do that, and then I had a lot of like financial difficulties when dealing with banks.
Right.
Yeah, so bank treated me like an expat, even though I'm a local.
Mm.
So that means if I need to get a credit card, if I need to get a loan, that's a whole it's very,
Okay.
yeah, that's a whole problem that I have to deal with.
This is actually something that people normally don't think about,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a really interesting topic that you're raising, because
Yeah.
now, you know, I feel that laws are still we are still kind of catching up to this new era of working remotely, especially
Mm-hmm.
now after COVID, where there's so many jobs like this, that there's still a lot of things that are not known, they're not covered by the law, that the banks are not aware of, and so there will be always some friction to set everything up, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Hmm. And so you got the job, you set up everything, and then I want to know how were your first days. Like, normally in my job at Trivago, for instance, we got an onboarding week, so we went there. I think everyone that was starting during that week, I think we were like 20-25 people, and we had like a week of training, or not training, but we got some presentations about the company. We got to know the company, how everything was set up. We got to know our peers.
Mm-hmm.
We had some case studies, everything in the office, physically.
Mm-hmm.
How was your onboarding?
So we have uh like a stand up every
Hmm.
twice a week.
Right.
So basically, during the stand up, that's how I got introduced to the rest of the team. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
And now we have to speak about what you mentioned in the beginning of our conversation. You have a 12 hours time difference, right?
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
so your stand-ups happened in your evening, and it's their morning, right? Something like
Yeah, that's
this.
correct. Yeah. So my stand up usually happens around 10 p.m. my time,
Hmm.
and then when daylight saving happens, that's around 11 p.m. Still not as bad.
11 p.m.
Yeah, it's 11 p.m.
So wait, what's your schedule like? When do you start working? When do you finish working?
Usually I start work. I try to pick a fixed schedule. So I try to work between like 8 to 5. That's during my time. Uh,
Right.
so that's my schedule. And then usually at night I have like we use like Discord right now. Previously we used
Mm-hmm.
Slack. Now we use Discord for communication.
Uh-huh.
Um, so usually I have like my Discord open.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime if anyone wants to communicate, I'm usually like even though it's past 5, cause sometimes I still respond to messages in Discord. Yeah,
Right.
but
So
it's not.
you have your meetings after hours, let's say, right?
Yeah, that's
So
right. Mhm.
this stand up that you have at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. This happens long after you finish work,
Yeah, that's
right?
right. Yeah, yeah.
And
Like like last
the
night, I missed the
yeah.
meeting because I was asleep. So yeah,
Wow.
but nobody was really. I mean,
Worry
I've been
about
working
that.
here
Yeah.
for like 6 years, so nobody really care if I'm missing or not.
Mm. Isn't that a bit doesn't it feel that you are basically always working? Because if you might have meetings until 11 and you start at 8. So does it feel that you're just like working too much?
Um, I I think that depends, because usually if I'm working on if I usually on Tuesday and Thursday, those are the days where I have my stand up. Usually around like
Mhm.
Tuesday or Thursday, I don't really work like 8 to 5. Usually
Right, you
between
start
those time.
later.
Yeah, yeah, start
Yeah,
later.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And okay, that's for the stand-ups. And the stand-ups, I guess, are a bit easier for you to arrange, because they're always at the same time, always in the same day. What about ad hoc meetings? Like, how do
Uh,
you, yeah, manage those?
Um, yeah, I had that happens multiple time actually. So usually they try to accommodate the time. So usually we set up like the calendly. Is that
Currently, yeah.
yeah. We usually we set up that, and then we try to pick some hours that both of us can actually meet. So
Mm-hmm.
that could be after five too, and that could be during working hours. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
So
when we are working, when we have a lot of gaps like that, I think we have to compromise the time that
right.
we are meeting.
So it's okay for people to set up for people in the US to set up meetings that are past your working hours, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all. But for you, I guess it's harder. Like, is it also okay for you? So let's say if it's 9 p.m. in their time, is 9 a.m. in yours, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So is it okay also for you to set up meetings at their 9
Yeah,
p.m.?
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
Wow.
usually how it goes is that if I if I need help from them, so
Mm-hmm.
I should probably be the one who set up the time. So basically, my
Right.
time is 9 p.m. and then their time
Yeah.
is 9 a.m. So and then if they
Got
need
it.
my help, usually they do like my time and then their night time,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So
So if you need their help, then you will be the one making the sacrifice.
yeah, that's true.
Okay. Got it. How many meetings do you have per week?
Not many really. Actually,
Yeah.
we only have two stand-ups. We rarely have like
Okay.
meetings, ad hoc meetings, because
So that's the
everything.
paradise. That's paradise for a developer, isn't it?
Yeah, because mostly communication happens either through our Discord or through the GitHub issues.
As you know, I did a little Slack, no, sorry, a little Twitter question
Mm-hmm.
on my Twitter asking what would be. So my question was, what would be your advice for someone that just started working remotely, and you also answered, but
Mm-hmm.
there was also here some interesting answers. So I want to read them to you, and I want to hear your thoughts on them.
Okay.
So Frederick van Lierde said that he thinks that it's really important to basically have a routine. So he wakes up as he's going to work, he dresses up as he's going to work, and he has like a routine. So he starts, takes a shower, drinks coffee, and he tries also to have a different place for working, and or he says that he even builds a place for his working so that he can clearly distinguish between office and home.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also have a routine like this?
I do. I also have like my own office in my home.
Okay.
But I do understand that some people are not, because like if you are renting, for example, then you might not have enough room to make your own office.
Right.
Um, but again, I think this depends a lot on the individual. I don't really have any issues working without uh, an office or without having routine, because I have like one coworker from Spain.
Right.
Even though he lives in Spain, his hours are pretty much hectic, I would say. He doesn't really have like a fixed schedule, so he works until he got tired and then he stop. Like for me, for example, I have a family. I have like a small toddler, so I need to have
Hmm.
those kind of routine.
Because what I'm afraid of is, and I think it also happened to me, like at some point, if you don't have an office, like in your case, you can you actually distinguish between your office and your home? And then I don't know. I feel that it's quite easy for your life uh, to really intertwine your business life or your professional life with your social life.
Mhm.
Did this ever happen to you that at some point you were basically always working? You felt that you were always in your office?
When I was starting uh,
Mm-hmm.
working remotely, I have that problem,
Right.
because when you are working in the office, you have the physical presence. someone would notice that you are there, and then okay, that means you are doing some work. But when you are working remotely, it's all
Hmm.
based on trust. Like nobody knows that you are working, right?
Right,
So
right.
yeah, so it's all about trust. And then
Hmm.
during one of the review, my boss actually asked me whether I have work life balance set up properly.
So your boss is also aware of this, and he cares about the employees, and he cares about that the employees should still have a work life balance that is healthy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
There's another answer here from Cage, and he says, "Do not ignore your health too. Add exercise to your routine and keep fit."
Mhm.
And I also noticed this. Like I've been like my life is basically my chair now, and if I have a lot to work, I'm always in my chair. And if I don't have anything set up to do some exercise, especially with COVID, because everything kind of closed down and there was no gyms, there were no events or sports happening, it's really easy to have this sedentary life. And do you feel that it's important to also exercise, or
Yeah,
what
yeah,
do you
that's
think about
right.
it?
That's right. Because I think when you work remotely, one thing that I notice is that your lifestyle is more sedentary
Mm-hmm.
than than
Yeah,
when you are going to the office. Because when you're going to the office, you actually walk a lot. Actually, you walk to your friend's cubicle, you walk to
exactly.
your friend's place. But in the office, but when you work remotely, you basically just be sitting in your chair for the whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sometimes you
exercise
go
is
to the
important.
bathroom, sometimes you go to the kitchen, and that's
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something that people maybe not notice that much,
Mhm,
because especially the reason why I had this idea for this topic is because I have a friend, Matthias. I also even interviewed him here in the podcast, and he's starting his remote job, so it's
mhm,
for the first time, and he asked me for tips, and he said it could be a good topic for an episode, and here we are. But this is something that people don't think about.
mhm,
Now you're always in your house, and you need to set up your exercise. And one thing that is very interesting, when I was in Trivago, they had also sports. So Trivago is like, it's a kind of a big tech company, so they had gyms, they have also like football, and you had also your peers that you could organize this
mhm,
kind of team sports. Once I left that, I also left all the sports, and now I'm there's no HR, there's no one organizing this kind of events and sports for myself, and it's very hard to do it. Um, how do you manage that? Does your company also give you some budget for exercise and something like this?
No, we don't. No, they don't give us any kind of budget like that. But I
Okay,
have like friends who works with other company remotely too.
yeah,
They do have that sort of budget. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I think it depends on the company too.
Hmm. So I guess this is something for the listeners. If they are looking for a remote job, this is maybe something to ask about.
Mm-hmm,
If
mm-hmm,
you have some budget for exercise. And Isaac also said something really interesting, which I totally agree. He said, "Get a good coffee machine."
oh,
And this is probably I have my award, buy of the year award that I I give to myself. So it's something that I do it. And mine is definitely my coffee machine. I bought one that it's kind of bean to cup. So
mm-hmm,
you add the beans, it brews the beans, it grinds it does everything, and it's amazing for two reasons. First, it's not those capsules coffee machines, because I drink 2-3 coffees a day. This would be 3 capsules every day, and that's a lot
mm-hmm.
of waste that I'm able to avoid. And second, I have great coffee, so I don't need to go out. I don't need. It's really important for me. Are you also a coffee drinker?
No, I don't drink coffee at all actually.
Ah, okay. So for you, the coffee machine is not a good idea. What do you drink?
Mostly just water, and
So
then
what?
just some sweet drinks.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Is this something that you have to think about? Like, what would I have to buy for my office days?
Not really. It's just like a normal household I would say that it's just that I feel like I'm just working at home. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I do it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
No, I
and
mean
then,
it makes sense. Yeah.
and then one thing else to note about working remotely, I think there are two sort of companies.
Mm-hmm.
So if you notice the trend of like of hiring remote, they have like some companies requires some overlapping time zone, and then
Yeah.
some doesn't. So I think those two companies usually have like two different cultures too. So for example, if those remote companies require like overlapping hours, usually the communications are much more synchronous.
Synchronous. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for those company that hires like globally, they usually have like more written communication.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. Yours is the as remote as it can get
yeah,
for
that's
your
right.
company, right?
Yeah,
It's like with 12 hours time difference, and
yeah.
so so I
Uh,
guess communication is key in your case,
mhm,
right? And
mhm.
let's talk a little bit about communication. What are your tips for to have great communication with people working remotely?
So for example, when we develop features, we don't straight go to the coding. Basically, we write some specification, and then someone go through that specification, make sure that uh, that's how they want things to be implemented. If this and then someone would this happened informally. There's no like a formal process, but
Mm-hmm.
that's how things are being done. Um, that's really helps a lot, because when you try to develop a feature, and then you want to make sure that you covers all the possibilities, because if you hit a snag somewhere, for example, then you need to communicate to the person that knows more detail about the
Right.
business, for example. Then that's a blocker, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you wanna get all of those blocking issues out of the way as early as
Right.
possible.
How do you do that with great specifications?
Yeah, great specification.
Right. So
Yeah,
you have a culture of really when you make your tickets, you write everything like you overwrite things. You say like you really go to the details. Is that it?
yeah, that's right. And then
Okay.
those kind of thing, we even though we have Discord, so because Discord is mostly for like synchronous communication, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's kind of thing we write in either GitHub issue,
GitHub
uh,
issues. Yeah.
yeah, uh, because otherwise that kind of information will get lost.
So in if I think about my developing times, we would also lose a lot of time or spend a lot of time in between QA and development. Uh, so let's say I develop a feature, I move it to quality assurance, which is basically someone that is going to test what I've just built. And
Mhm.
then if they would find something, they would move it back to me, and we would sometimes be back and forth, back and forth. How does that work with this different time zone difference?
We test in production. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Stupid.
um. So yeah, it's a similar process, but during those time, we have other things that we can do. So basically, we can either go grab some bug issues that we can try to fix. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think when
But you
you
know that that's something that I really don't like, because what happens there, and I've seen that happen before. So you move something for QA, then you pick up another task. Suddenly you have so much work, and you have all the tasks, and it's really hard to manage, right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that could happen too. I mean, but usually you don't go uh picking up more than. Usually we only have like two things at a time. We,
Right.
otherwise,
Do you have a
otherwise
rule for that? A hard rule for that?
we don't. Because the way that we work here is mostly like autonomous. Like
Hmm.
everyone has the things that they are working on. And then if
Right.
you don't really have anything to work on, so basically you try to manage yourself. That's how
Hmm.
we do things. So yeah.
Right.
I think when we work remotely, I think the mentality has to change a little bit, because you are mostly like operating by yourself usually.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a great topic for us to talk about now, because I'm an extrovert person, right? So I get my energy by hanging out with other people, by chatting, and working remotely as a bootstrapper, especially. It can be very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like that? And so I miss feeling part of something bigger than myself. When I was part of a company, especially when I worked for the startup that I worked afterwards, I felt like I was part of a team, and I loved that feeling. And we were all working together for the startup, for the company to succeed. Do you have this feeling, or you kind of lose it when you work remotely?
You still have the same feel. You still have the same feeling. But it's sort of like different, because I can understand the social isolation when you're working remotely for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I do miss like going to the office, but I miss going to the office mostly because of like meeting with people kind of thing,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So how do you? So when I was working in this startup, it was the first time we had people working remotely full time. So most of us were working in the office, but then we had some people working remotely, and it was very interesting because especially one of them, Christy, made a big effort to make sure that we will still have the feeling of being a team. So we had like multiple online team events. We would grab a beer online. We had this thing called random coffees, where Slack, there was a Slack bot that would pair people every week so that they would have a random coffee and like just chat and so on. So it was interesting because we would still see each other quite often. And once I met them in real life, let's say, I felt that I have met them already, that I knew them already. Do you also have this kind of events?
no, we don't. Uh,
Hmm.
we previously we had. I mean, like every year, usually we have like a hackathon.
Mm-hmm.
So in functional programming, in functional programming scene, there was this a big conference. It's called like ICFP.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they have like a hackathon. So usually during the hackathon weekend, usually like uh, most of uh, most of us in the companies who can participate basically join as one team for the competition. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, we don't really have. Um, I mean, like sometimes I do chat with my colleague.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I've met them personally. So I think we had like one before COVID. I met them once before COVID.
Yeah.
We had like everyone came from all around the world
Right.
to the office for 3 years.
Yeah.
Something like
Do you
that.
think that it should be done more often, or are you okay with that frequency?
Um, Traveling is hard really because like um I know like some companies actually do that every year.
Hmm.
Um, but I think for me I'm okay.
You don't
Uh,
miss it.
oh yeah, I don't really. I mean, yeah, I don't actually miss it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I think
what
it's
about your social life? Do you have friends, then your friends that are outside of your work that you hang out with, or
yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah.
okay?
Hmm.
So
So
it's
yeah, I
it's
think that would be difficult if I don't really have any friends outside
yeah,
of work.
yeah,
I think that would be a different story, right? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, because if I think about when I moved to Germany, my friends were my coworkers. That
Mm-hmm,
then they started as coworkers, and now they are some of them. They are my best friends.
mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's something that you kind of miss out, especially if you have such a big time difference. But something interesting that I've learned from Spotify. So what Spotify does is they use WeWork, which is a company that basically they own a lot of co-working spaces, and they say everyone that is working in Amsterdam can hang out in our co-working space in Amsterdam. Everyone that is working in Malaysia can also hang out there. Wouldn't
All
this be a possibility? So that, let's say you have 3, 4, 5 peers that also work in Malaysia for that company in the US, and they could somehow hang out in the office in the co-working space.
I think if the company is like really big, then I think it would make sense. But I'm the only one from Malaysia, basically.
Yeah,
Working
yeah,
with
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That
And
then
then
it's harder.
and then one thing that I want to point out is that when you were talking about some of your coworkers are working remotely, some of them are the office. We have some sort of like rules that whoever works in the office, when you want to communicate, you have to use Discord.
That's very important.
Yeah,
Yes.
otherwise, people who are working remotely will miss out this communication.
That's a very great topic, and because it's easier, in my opinion, to that if everyone is working remotely, than to have this hybrid mode. Because
Mhm.
if you have this hybrid mode and people are not trained to work remotely, then what happens is that people that are working remotely are feel left
Left out.
out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
because they are not part of the conversation. So that's something actually that Christy, that coworker that was working remotely, that he kept on teaching us and telling us, if you have a joke to make it also on Discord or on Slack. If you have something to ask or something to share it also on Slack. Don't share only for your peers next to you. And it's something that it needs training. It doesn't come easily. It doesn't come intuitively, because it's much easier to just speak to your peer that is
Yeah,
next to
that's
you.
true. Mhm.
Yeah. And one thing that we also did that was also very interesting, in even though we are, let's say that 5 of us were in the office, when we're doing our meetings, let's say our stand-ups, we still all went to our own personal laptop or individual laptop, and we all attended the meeting in the laptop, because that makes also much easier for communication, the room to understand each other. uh, that's also a tip that I would give to everyone.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Even for us, when we have, let's say for example, if I'm working on features with a colleague, then usually sometimes we do like a video call.
Mhm.
Anyone from the company can actually join the video.
Okay, why?
I don't know. I think it's just because we only have like around like 12 or 14 developers.
Mhm.
So so there's a lot of like openness in terms of development. So anyone can
Right.
actually join if they are interested in knowing about the project. Yeah, it's a great push too.
Right, right. So what are the things? So we already talked about always speaking on Discord or Slack or whatever. Don't if you are in the office, it's really important to keep communication going. uh you also spoke about being very detailed in your tickets. By the way, which software do you use? Do you use Jira? Do you use Trello for writing? You use GitHub.
GitHub, yeah.
GitHub, okay. So always be very specific there. What do you have any other tip that is you feel that it's very important for someone working remotely?
I think those 2 points that I
Mhm.
mentioned in my tweet are the most important.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And then personally, we spoke about having a routine, trying to stay healthy. Doing you have to set up your own exercise, and and then and then we are still. If you have friends already, that's great. If you don't, you need to go and find them outside of the office.
Yeah, that's gonna be. I would say that's gonna be tough too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's easier if you are in the same time zone, because, as I told you, we had many events and it was
Mhm.
really nice. But if you are in such different time zones, it might be harder. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And then there's one more thing that I want to talk about, which is, how do you explain working remotely for people that do not work remotely? And with that, I include your wife or girlfriend, your friends, your family. because, for instance, myself, I feel that I'm working at home, and then I'm working the full day, and let's say my girlfriend gets home and she says, like, why didn't you, I don't know, do some the dishes? Why didn't you do this or that? Because they expect that since you are home, you should be working on your household chores. Is that something that also happens to you?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I was laughing actually because when you were telling me all this stuff, yeah, those things happens to me too. Like people doesn't used to the idea that that you're working remotely. I mean, like when you are at home, that you're actually working. So yeah, I had those problems too.
How do you fix it?
I think it's just by time, uh, people will understand. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, like when I moved to this place, I'm actually like living closer to my in-laws. So usually like during working hours, usually sometimes they will ask me for help,
Right.
that kind of stuff. But usually
Yeah,
I just
that's
explain
a
to.
problem.
Yeah, that's true. So usually what I do is just like I try to explain them that I'm usually like working between 8 to 5, things like that. And if you think that you need help with, we can do it after that, things like that. I think
Right,
you have to
right.
explain to the person.
And did you ever try going to a co-working space to work?
I did, yeah, yeah.
And what
Yeah.
are your thoughts? What was the
Uh,
experience?
I think it's really great actually. I like going because when before COVID actually I actually like rented like co-working space, and sometimes I would
Mm-hmm.
from a cafe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Because this
it
could
is.
be a great way to solve the problem of meeting people, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I met like a couple of like new friends from working in
Mm-hmm.
co-working space, and then I think it's a good change of scenery too.
As a solopreneur, I'm basically alone in this, right? And I sometimes feel that it would be interesting to have to go to a co-working space and meet other people that are doing the same, that are also bootstrappers, and this could be a great way, great idea.
Back when I was in back when I was living in Kuala Lumpur, I went to co-working space with my other friend who were also working remotely.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found out is that my productivity is actually going down because
Mm-hmm.
we mostly spend time like talking, because
Yeah,
usually we are socially isolated, right? When working
yeah,
remotely, and
right,
then
exactly. Yeah,
when we plan to go to a co-working space to work together, what we actually did was mostly like talk with each other instead of working.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but if you go every day, then it's different, right?
Yeah, that's true. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's a good point as well. I with a wannabe entrepreneur, I also want to build what I call a virtual co-working space for bootstrappers. So I'm trying to like organize a community of people and organize also some events. So we have the Slack channel, as I told you, where we kind of support each other, we mentorship each other, and then I also want to do. I'm going to do actually the first in the hopefully next week our first virtual beer, so that we can meet each other and so on. So I'm trying to do something like this as well, and of course that you will be also invited to join. So everyone that I interview gets basically a free pass to join this community. And if you are listening, then you basically you pay 4 years a month to join this and also to support the podcast. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, thanks for the invite. I will definitely check it out.
yeah, yeah, that would be amazing. And yeah, thank you so much also for your time and for sharing your experience. I think it was really helpful, and I bet you that a lot of people learned a lot from you, Cyril. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun like talking to you. Yeah, it was. I think it was a great podcast. Yeah,
Thank you.
I will definitely like to listen more on the other podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You should listen the one with Tiny Ask. It's also from from people. They are, well, as I told you, they are living now in Australia, but they are both from Malaysia. We also spoke a little bit about the Malaysian startup scene and so on. So this could be a good one for you to start with.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool. This was another interview. The podcast will return next Tuesday with our freestyle version, and then there will be also another interview next Thursday. And if you have any questions, if you want to know about Stencil, the product that Shulhi is building, or you just want to check it out or chat with him, everything will be linked in the description. I will link his Twitter, I will link his products, everything. And Shulhi, whatever you want me to link, I will also do it. So you can just go to the show notes, and all the information will be there. This was another Wannabe Entrepreneur. See you next Tuesday.